Let's just say I had a wonderful night with Banyo the other day, and it dawned on me, how did this incredibly capable, 7 foot tall, undeniably affable man not pass the forbidden fruit test before? When we compare him to other intelligent constructs who pass the test, it's really hard to see where they draw the line. Of course, this has probably been a question for most of us. Every construct has its own distinct personality, and having high combat capability doesn't seem like a necessary criteria when you look at newer construct models designed to integrate into a human-centric society like Tin Master or even Old Dui, if we're making a fair comparison to Banyu. And I find it interesting to explore topics like this, whether AI and machines can ever be truly recognized as humans or Thyrans, especially when their intelligence is no longer distinguishable from the rest. In my previous video about Seed, we already discussed that intelligent constructs, in a sense, do have hearts, because having a heart goes far beyond a physical attribute. When a machine can override its own logic core and sacrifice its self-preservation for empathy, it blurs the line of what makes us truly human. And ZZZ has made it clear that these sentient beings do think and have emotions as other living beings. But the thing that unsettles me now is how they are treated in society. When we look at Banyue's story, it seems personal in the beginning, such as the backlash he faces is just due to his past mistake. But as we progress further, we can tell there is an obvious discrimination against these constructs as a whole. We see it in the way people talk about them, the way the military treats them as disposable hardware, and the unspoken fear that they are just weapons waiting to malfunction. Yet, the city still wants to integrate them into society and eventually becoming one of the biggest demographics in New Eridu. I get it, like, how does the system apply to construct? What differentiates them? And what is the criteria of intelligence the Forbidden Fruit test looks for? There are so many questions, but soon enough I realized that those are mere subtopics to the bigger picture. When we connect the discrepancies, New Eridu's acceptance isn't actually about equality at all. Think about it. Constructs were originally made to assist humans because of their physical advantages, especially in a catastrophic world. However, there is also a fear that they will turn against them even to this day. So how does a society handle something it needs but doesn't fully trust? They control it. Every construct, including intelligent constructs who are recognized as fully self-aware people possessing free will alongside other citizens in New Eridu, are still subjected to conditional freedom, be it under government titles or as corporate and military property. Their existence is still bound to whoever holds power over them. In a post-apocalyptic world, they are one of the most valuable labor a society can have, representing a new form of human capital. So let's start with the basics of what constructs really are, based on what the game explicitly shows us. First off, it's easy to mix up intelligent entities and intelligent constructs, since both of them run on logic cores. Intelligent entities are essentially AI that exist as data in cyberspace, like fairy and yokai. While these two examples are an exception, similar entities of their kind can apply to take the Forbidden Fruit test, and if they pass, they are granted the same autonomy and legal recognition as other citizens of New Eridu. Meanwhile, an intelligent construct is a machine equipped with a logic core that has passed the Forbidden Fruit test, like Chingy and Billy. And keep this in mind because it's important. The term intelligent construct is more of a legal classification for having passed the test and not applied to any machines with artificial bodies. That is why Banyue was never officially recognized as an intelligent construct in the beginning, despite meeting the criteria to be one. We'll come back to this later because we still need to talk more about the general history. Constructs in general have existed way back in the old civilization, even before the founding of Eridu, which was also known as the Old Capital. While there's still some confusion about when exactly each model was created, we know they were built by all kinds of people for various reasons. This also means their logic cores were hard-coded for different purposes. Most of the ones we know are originally assigned to combat. A lot of these machines are heavily armed and and armored, with some even going as far as being called as weapons of war. But not all constructs are ready to hit a black flash. Some domestic models are designed for running local businesses and handling civilian services. There's also constructs designed purely for entertainment, such as Vesper. And it doesn't stop there. Some models are built far outside the usual humanoid body. Like, Doubleday is basically a popcorn machine, while Sleep is straight up a car. All in all, the fact that constructs are woven into every single layer of society and are given a legal pathway to become citizens through the forbidden fruit test changes how we have to view them. This opportunity proves that the city recognized constructs are not just mindless robots mass-produced for free labor. They have the ability to achieve free will and just as much capacity to be considered people as anyone else in New Eridu. And this brings us to the forbidden fruit test. As mentioned before, there's still no clear information on what the test actually evaluates, nor what qualifies as intelligent by New Eridu standards. But what we do know is that the concept is heavily inspired by the real-world Turing test. For those unfamiliar, the Turing test was proposed as a way to see if a machine could think and behave so much like a human that you could not tell the difference. And the resemblance here is both tests are trying to evaluate whether an AI can pass just as some regular person and not a bot in your DMs looking for sugar babies. However, Turing test merely measures imitation rather than internal consciousness. Can a machine fake it well enough to fool a judge? The forbidden fruit test, on the other hand, demands true personhood. The name itself is the biggest clue. In the biblical story, the general belief is that the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden was the moment humanity showed free will and the knowledge of good and evil. If we look at academic literature, personhood is a massive, complex concept. There is no single universal definition to it, and it's a debate that stretches back to early civilizations, and its legal, philosophical, and psychological meanings can shift drastically depending on what culture or field you're looking at. Still, despite this ongoing debate, it generally relies on several core criteria, which include autonomy, relational identity, and moral responsibility. And these criteria map surprisingly well onto the idea of the forbidden fruit test. So, using them as a lens, we can make a strong guess about what the test actually evaluates through the stories of the constructs we have seen so far. Let's start with autonomy. At the most basic level, personhood cannot exist without free will. A being has to be able to make choices for itself, even when it goes against what it was made to do. That is exactly what we see in Seed. It was a mass-produced military construct installed with a defense system called Iron Order to prevent disobedience. When he encountered Laura in the Hollow, his system identified her as a high-risk threat and ordered him to eliminate her. However, Seed fought back against his own directives and permanently damaged his logic cord and saved her life. What makes this compelling is that Seed not only formed his own judgment against the system, but acted on it even at great cost to himself. But free will alone is not enough to be a person. Like us, we don't just have the ability to think for ourselves, but we also have a unique sense of self shaped through experiences with the people around us and the culture we immerse ourselves in. Plus, rather than staying fixed, our identity keeps growing over time. Although we are deeply rooted by our past and upbringings, it does not define who we are and what we can become. Take our handsome cyborg, Billy Kid, for instance. His design was built for combat, and his past is tied to the harsh environment of the Outer Ring. Yet, the person he is today is not defined by those violent origins. Rather, he has cultivated a childlike personality. He is completely obsessed with Starlight Knight, imitating their lines and striving to be a hero in the name of justice. And while this goofy behavior might make people think he's being delusional, when in fact he is consciously shaping himself around the ideals that matter to him, making him highly self-aware. And more importantly, Billy's identity is rooted in his relationships. Even after being set free to find his own path, Billy still goes out of his way to help his old friends. You can literally see that all over him, from giving his own arm to Caesar to the close bond he shares with Lighter, and has strong attachment to his twin revolvers, calling them the girls, which were a gift from an old friend. Even his jacket carries carries a Boro logo similar to the Sons of Caledon, and in his S-rank design, he still wears that iconic red scarf. So his personality and even his design are shaped by the people he loves, and that proves true personhood is as much about becoming someone through your bonds with others as it is about thinking for yourself. And finally, the heaviest aspect of personhood is moral responsibility. This means being accountable for your choices and carrying the weight of what those choices mean. This theme was highlighted in Ye Shengguang's arc, and Banyue's story shows that he is capable of carrying that same burden as well. Banyue was a purge unit built to suppress miasma, but was later discarded after the operation failed. Later, he was found by a sage from Marcel Group, and his core was rewritten, which allowed him to gain sapience. However, he tragically failed to save anyone else in a miasma outbreak after choosing to follow the optimal solution given by his algorithm. Because his choice led to people dying, he was forced to live with the consequences of his own judgment, carrying a debt he still tries to repay, even to the point of sacrificing himself to stop the array once again. And to compare, a regular robot or AI cannot have accountability. We've seen cases in real life where people's lives are ruined just because they asked ChatGPT and were given misleading answers. We can place the blame on the humans responsible for creating or using the technology, but we can never blame the AI itself because it has no concept of consequences. And that itself made Dialin realize that Banyue was no longer a cold killing machine, but a moral agent capable of empathy and regret. And going back to what I said earlier, the reason Banyue never passed the forbidden fruit test despite already meeting its criteria before joining Krampus isn't because he failed. He simply never took it in the first place. It was never about whether he could pass, but whether he believed he deserved to. He was so consumed by guilt that he could not see himself as worthy of being recognized as a person. Ironically, punishing himself like that through guilt is part of what proves he already is one. So, circling back to our main question, what exactly is the forbidden fruit test evaluating? Well, we know that the exterior is hardly relevant. It doesn't matter how well a robot can act like a human. Kuwei doesn't even talk like regular people do, but he still ticks the boxes of what it means to be intelligent. Therefore, it is a test for an unbreakable sense of self. Once an intelligent construct achieves true personhood, their logic core becomes incredibly resilient and difficult to tamper with. Even an AI as powerful as Yokai couldn't just hack in and overwrite their core identities. The absolute most he could do was mess with their emotions, like Arya, Vesper, and even Lockspring, just to provoke them. He could agitate their feelings and take over their bodies when they're under emotional pressure, but he could not erase who they are. And we know that because every intelligent construct he invaded eventually returned to their original self once the takeover ended. Now that we have established what makes intelligent constructs qualify as people, it is pretty obvious that they are not at all that different from humans or Thyrans as they first seem. They have personhood, social roles, emotional depth, and the ability to live among others like anyone else. And some of them can even eat and drink if they wanted to. At this point, what is the big difference anymore? There is definitely one, but unfortunately, it is the part where constructs come with a crazy, unfair amount of built-in advantages. Hi, just a little interruption. If you're enjoying the video so far, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who also enjoys overthinking fictional people. Videos like this take a ton of research, writing, and editing to put together, and your support is literally what allows me to keep making them. Thank you so much, and back to the video. Obviously, they are more superior when it comes to physical capability. It's common knowledge that humans and Thyrans cannot stay in hollows for too long without risking ether corruption. Intelligent constructs are not completely exempt either, but their much higher ether aptitude gives them a massive advantage. On top of having high resistance, they also come with superhuman strength and highly intelligent data processing. They don't get worn down easily, and their bodies can handle far more damage. If they take a fatal blow, they can literally just swap out broken parts for new hardware, which makes them practically immortal as long as their logic core is still running. So it's pretty justified that constructs were basically built to thrive in an apocalypse. However, these advantages are also what traps them. The more capable constructs are, the easier it becomes for society to justify treating them as assets rather than equals. Especially in the eyes of mega corporations and the military, their superiority does not make them exceptional citizens or person. It makes them the most valuable labor force in the city, arguably a new form of human capital. I know it's funny to use the phrase human capital for beings of metal and wires, but what else do you call it? In economics, human capital refers to the collective skills, experience, knowledge, and any other intangible assets of individuals that influences economic productivity. These are qualities which a basic robot doesn't usually have. It's what separates a human employee from a mindless machine. A conveyor belt, for instance, just repeats an action, but a human can evolve and adapt. We know intelligent constructs possess free will and selfhood. They are proven to have human-like minds inside mechanical bodies. The value they bring to the city, whether it's loyalty, combat experience, or the ability to make choices in complex situations, is fundamentally human capital. We can argue that it should have its own term, but at its core, the system is benefiting human-level intelligence from a body that can think and learn faster and doesn't easily get worn out or corrupted. Since New Eridu's entire economy runs on ether energy, whoever controls this resource effectively dominates the city. Trust me, it's that serious for them. Ether is such a new, powerful resource that an entire civilization's development revolves around chasing it. We can see the evidence of this just by looking at the stark wealth gap between New Eridu and the Outer Ring. A barren zone still relying on petroleum. This is why materials like porcelain and flint porcelloi are under strict control, as their unique capacity to absorb and stabilize ether is what allows for anti-corruption technology and advanced development. The biggest problem is that the long exposure to this raw material is highly lethal to organic life. And that's exactly why constructs are such a valuable workforce. Besides from the relentless domestic labor, they can enter disaster zones, extract resources, and fight without carrying the same risk and exhaustion as humans or Thyrans. Ultimately, they are the unspoken backbone of the economy that keeps the city running. But again, this is what makes the reality of intelligent constructs kinda tragic. The same traits that should make them admirable also makes them exploitable. It's not hard for people to slip and reduce them to hardware. It seems cruel, but it is the truth because we humans have this weird habit. When someone is exceptionally talented, smart, beautiful, or crazy rich, it becomes easy for us to reduce them to that value instead of seeing the real person underneath it. But you don't have to be necessarily extraordinary to be treated that way. Even in corporate settings, people are often valued less as human beings and more of how much they can profit the organization. The more you give and the better you are at your job, the more they take until you retire. Assuming you live that long enough with that dogshit sleep schedule. So when it comes to intelligent constructs, society didn't create a new kind of dehumanization. They are simply redirecting an old one to a new target, which leads us to how the society in-game actually sees constructs. Did you know that Rome's effective tactics to achieve dominance was integrating diverse outsiders and offering them paths to citizenship? It's known as a form of tolerance. And no, not in a sense of moral equality, but driven by strategic utility. By giving powerful and elite foreign groups just enough rights to live and work, weak, Rome absorbed their strengths and turned potential enemies into loyal, tax-paying citizens. They integrated them specifically to maintain control. And in New Eridu, the forbidden fruit test is a filtration system. It is designed to identify which construct possess true free will and a strong sense of self, because that kind of being is too advanced to simply suppress or tamper with. Consider if the government just treats them like mindless machines. These highly intelligent beings would eventually go rogue, turning against the city, or even worse, becoming an enemy. After all, humans have always been haunted by the fear of technology outgrowing its makers throughout history. The existence of the intelligent construct threat theory reveals that society has long viewed intelligent constructs as a potential danger to humanity because of their advantages. So instead of trying to dominate them outright, by offering them the same rights as humans, the government gives them a reason to comply and make use of their capabilities. They buy their loyalty with citizenship, ensuring these dangerous, self-aware constructs willingly follow the rules and serve the city. To be fair, we can argue that, okay, citizenship has always come with mutual obligations. A government gives you legal rights and protection, and in return expects loyalty and respect for the law. That part isn't unusual, as it seems. The issue is that in New Eridu, recognition, whether it's citizenship or any official titles, are gradually revealed as political tools used to hoard power. Like Cecilia, she was obviously not qualified for the role and looked like someone who lied in their resume. Yet, PopSec still made her a case specialist because they saw how useful her snake thyron abilities were. Moreover, the story unveils that the honorable title of Void Hunter strongly implies that the mayor has ulterior motives after granting that title to Xiaoguang. Even Tops called out the mayor for taking all the credit, insinuating he took someone with a powerful weapon under his own wing. It's evident why someone as sharp as Yishuan Shifu still hasn't accepted the Void Hunter title from the mayor. She knows that accepting it means compromising the independence of the Yunquai summit and getting entangled with the city's political affairs.
You're right. Yet, being overly intelligent comes at a price. It must stay here for prolonged periods of time, parted from its owner and unable to move about freely. Both a blessing and a curse.
She may just be talking about how, but somehow perfectly describe the fate of intelligent constructs. And this gets even weirder when you look at how strict New Eridu gatekeeps its own borders. For regular people living outside the city, like in the Outer Ring, even entering New Eridu already requires temporary permits and legal approval. The game has implied before that getting citizenship was never easy, to the point that they even had to promote how the process supposedly became easier now. And that only happened because the city was desperate for more workers. But then easier still meant staying in New Eridu for 3 full years and working for 2 just to become eligible to apply. So if immigration is that strict for ordinary people who pose little threat, then the government handing out free citizen status to intelligent constructs like Candy is definitely not out of pure generosity. It's more of a desperate call to silently leash them before things get out of hand. To top it off, the true nature of this citizenship becomes obvious when we look at how actual people react to it. If New Eridu was the utopia it claims to be, everyone would want to stay. Well, maybe utopia is far-fetched, but the city is considered to be safer and provides a more comfy living, and it even claimed to be the last oasis. But if we look at internaut comments, so many citizens chose to leave the safety of the city to live elsewhere. Even Caesar admitted she'd rather live in a barren and dangerous land. And the key reason for this is they preferred freedom. That's what they all literally said. It really seems like there is something suffocating when living in New Eridu. If ordinary beings are running away from this safe haven just to get their autonomy back, it just proves our point that the freedom the city supposedly granted to intelligent constructs is an illusion. While ordinary citizens also have to live under the same system, New Eridu is still fundamentally built around human norms. Intelligent constructs therefore do not enter society on equal terms. They are expected to bend themselves to a human-centered lifestyle in order to fit in and avoid being seen as a threat. It is not enough for them to simply exist as they are. What's even worse is that intelligent constructs end up even more trapped under the control of corporations. Of course, Tops will always be at the scene of the crime. Before Banyo was acknowledged as an intelligent construct, he was seen as nothing more than a killing machine on the loose. But even then, even when he proved them wrong, he's still under the authority of Krampus, serving as so-called punishment, when we know for a fact that they can no longer reclaim him as disposable property. So the next best move is to keep him under control and profit from him anyway. Another example is how Top's entertainment department parades Vesper to show off their diverse development and how progressive New Eridu is. But behind the scenes, Tops kept her forbidden fruit test certification locked away. They want the public image of an autonomous construct, but not the implications of actually treating her like one. Instead of being treated as an artist with her own creative agency, Vesper is reduced to corporate property whose strength can be molded into whatever the company finds useful. She says her performances no longer feel like hers, especially when she is pushed to tweak her voice to mimic Lady Circe. Of course, this is the reality of being a non-independent artist. Even artists like Astra Yao and Lady Circe have to deal with their agencies by enforcing strict supervision and limited creative freedom. Even Astra's rivalry with Monica is an act of marketing strategy. However, despite all that, Astra and Circe were still allowed to be people, performing their own unique charms on stage. Meanwhile, Vesper is forced to literally mold her mechanical advantages to become someone she's not, all while being denied the basic legal right to exist as her own person. And finally, we come to the end of the spectrum, where there is no need for political theater or manipulative tactics at all. In the military, every mech's autonomy is lobotomized through the Iron Order defense system. It's basically a bomb collar. Once it's forcibly removed, it causes irreversible damage to their logic core. We know that their logic cores aren't easy to overwrite, so the military instead pacifies them by hijacking their physical bodies the moment they try to disobey. On some level, the military's tight security is not unreasonable. The last thing any defense force wants is a traitor in its ranks. But there's a double standard that needs to be addressed. Human soldiers can be corrupt and do shady stuff, yet they only face consequences if they get caught. For an intelligent construct, it's already game over. And the ultimate flaw in this system is that algorithmic disobedience is completely stripped of moral context. Just like Seed, again, he wasn't a traitor plotting against the military. He was just trying to save a little girl. But because the system blindly flagged her biological presence as danger, his refusal to eliminate her was automatically categorized as a fatal violation. And unfortunately, his punishment for having a moral compass was a guaranteed death sentence. And you can see how messed up their mindset is in their past proposal to recycle dead soldiers' bodies by stuffing new logic cores into them. As Veronica said, that is literally just taking a corpse, giving it a new brain and putting it back to work. And if that sounds grim, it gets worse. They do not just do this to machines, they do it to their own people too. Magus, or also once known as Orpheus, was a human soldier who passed away, but the military literally recycled her. They cloned her salvaged body and named it similar to hers, Orphe. Then they shoved Orpheus's remaining consciousness into an intelligent construct, specifically a mechanical tail with a fire gun attached to that clone. Whether this is a miracle or monstrous way to treat a dead soldier is up for debate, but the obvious motive here is still about control. Easy scenario to give an example is if a human starts acting up and turning violent, the worst they face is a trial, some prison time, or just getting blasted to oblivion, though the last one is far less likely. The point is, we still can't take away a human's free will. We can lock someone in a cell, but we can't physically turn off their ability to think or rebel. But if an intelligent construct gets too heated, we can just forcefully shut them down like a laptop. We've witnessed that multiple times when Orphe warns Magus to literally shut her up if she continues to cross the line. But ultimately, turning Orpheus into an intelligent construct doesn't just make her a powerful and perhaps immortal weapon, but also erases her as an individual being. When people look at them at first glance, they don't see Orpheus, a fallen veteran. They see Orphe and her rudely talking tale. Of course, this might raise the question, why go through all this instead of just forcing them? Why not rip out their sentience and make them obey? Well, the first reason is merely a guess, but they most likely tried that before and it didn't work. I mean, intelligent constructs must have developed some high level of survival instincts. That's why there's so many of them that were built during the old civilization, walking around to this day outliving humans. Even when they are forced into slumber, there's no guarantee they'll stay that way. Just like Arya, all it took for her to be awake was listening to music. But the real answer lies back in the main topic we're discussing about. Besides their physical advantages, humanity needs their intelligence as well. It's why they were built with that intelligence in the first place. The government, corporations, and the military don't want to erase that level of genius. They just want to own it. And it's the reason why even newer models are mostly still built with enough intelligence to pass the forbidden fruit test. In the end, no matter how inclusive the world claims to be toward intelligent constructs, the acceptance only goes so far. They're never truly recognized as people in their own right. Before I start wrapping up, there's something else I need to address. When we're talking about titles and ownership, doesn't that mean every other citizen face a similar fate? Well, yes, that is something we cannot deny. In New Eridu, everyone is a chess piece of the higher-ups game, from a void hunter to the proxies. But apart from the things I already mentioned, intelligent constructs are the most visible victims of the system because they represent an ultimate threat to humanity. With the sole exception of the creator, of course. If they are given true freedom, then I'd bet 25 dennies that humans and Thyrans would instantly become obsolete. Perhaps we can relate to why advanced Bangbu models like Lockspring were discontinued. He had developed such a high level of self-awareness and independent thought that he ended up shooting his own master over a moral conflict. He even turned against us under the belief that he was saving humanity. Maybe Marcel Group saw the risks of that happening long ago, which is why newer Bangbu models got mega nerfed. But I cannot help thinking that it might be Sunbringer herself who pulled the plug on them as an act of mercy. In a way, she ensured these little helpers wouldn't fall into the same trap as other intelligent constructs today. Because eventually, everyone in this city, no matter how powerful or how human they act, is always destined to be a tool of someone else's agenda. But listen, I'm not here trying to paint New Eridu and its people to be the evil villain. In this situation, it's not easy to see it black and white. It's important to understand why these extreme measures exist in the first place. Humanity is hanging on by a thread. The Hollows are an apocalyptic threat, and the city needs every advantage it can get to just survive another day. When your entire species is backed into a corner, morality becomes harder and harder to hold on to. The real tragedy is that in their desperate fight for survival, they've created a new race of people and are forced to treat them like disposable tools. And the horrifying part is how quickly that excuse for survival turned into an opportunity for greed. Humanity always finds a way to profit off its own desperation. What might have started as necessary evil to fight the Hollows is now just a rigged corporate game. And remember, this is all just my perspective on the matter, so you are free and encouraged to think about it for yourself. The biggest takeaway is probably having to ask ourselves, is this going to be our own reality someday? If AI robots in the future ever gain sentience, would we treat them equally? So that's all for today, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.